My friends, let me ask you something today. How many of us have smiled, not because we were happy, but because we were hiding our pain? How many times have we silently accepted words, actions, or behaviors that cut us deeply, yet we smiled, just so the world wouldn't see our tears? We live in a world where disrespect is often disguised as a joke, where insensitivity is called honesty, and where silence is mistaken for strength. But let me tell you, God did not create us to be doormats. He created us with dignity, with self-respect, and with a soul that deserves love, not humiliation. Today, I want to remind you of one powerful truth. Stop smiling through disrespect. Your peace is sacred, your worth is divine, and your silence should never be mistaken for weakness. Respect is not just a word we casually throw around, it is the very oxygen that allows our hearts and souls to thrive. Imagine this: when you walk into a room filled with fresh, clean air, you can breathe deeply and you feel alive. But if that air is replaced with smoke and toxins, suddenly every breath becomes painful, heavy, and suffocating. In the same way, respect is the air that our spirit breathes. Without it, we may still be alive, but we do not feel alive. When someone consistently disrespects us, it is like slowly poisoning the very air we need to keep our dignity alive. Think of a flower in a garden. If you pour clean water and give it sunlight, it blooms gracefully, spreading beauty everywhere. But if instead of water you pour dirt or acid, the flower cannot blossom. It will wither even though it was created to shine. Each of us is like that flower. God has designed us to bloom with respect, with love, and with dignity. But when we are surrounded by disrespect, we begin to shrink, not because we are weak, but because the environment suffocates our growth. Now, let us take a daily life example. Imagine you are at your workplace. You put in effort, you give your best, but instead of appreciation, someone makes a remark to belittle your contribution. At that moment, you might smile to keep the peace, but inside, something breaks a little. If this happens again and again, it chips away at your confidence. Slowly, you begin to question yourself. Am I really good enough? Maybe they are right. And that is where the danger lies. Disrespect is not just words. It is like a silent thief that enters your heart and steals your belief in your own worth. Respect is not a luxury that we enjoy when life is kind. It is a necessity that sustains us even in the harshest moments. When someone treats you with respect, even if you are struggling in other areas of life, you feel stronger because that respect reminds you that you are valuable. But when someone consistently disrespects you, even if you have success, money, or recognition, you feel empty inside. That is why respect is far more valuable than praise, because praise can be shallow, but respect is always genuine. Let us also remember, respect is not just about how others treat us, it is also about how we allow ourselves to be treated. If you accept disrespect silently, you are training the other person to believe it is acceptable to treat you this way. It's like leaving your house door open for anyone to walk in. Soon, you won't be surprised if strangers sit in your living room. In the same way, when you leave the door open for disrespect, you shouldn't be surprised when people walk all over your dignity. Respect is about closing that door and saying, this home, this heart, this soul is sacred. Take an example from family life. A child learns self-worth from how parents treat them. If parents correct their mistakes with respect, the child grows confident and secure. But if parents shout, insult, or compare, the child begins to believe they are unworthy of love. That wound follows them into adulthood. They might grow up to tolerate disrespect in relationships because deep down, They think that is all they deserve. Do you see how powerful respect is? It shapes not just our present, but our future, our relationships, and our identity. Respect is also not about ego. It is not about demanding people bow down before us. No, respect is about recognizing the divine essence within every soul. When we demand respect, it is ego. But when we live in a way that commands respect through our character, it is dignity. God has placed a spark within us, and respecting ourselves means protecting that spark from being dimmed by others' carelessness. There will be times when people try to justify disrespect. They will say, "I was just joking," or "Don't take it so seriously." But here is the truth: jokes that hurt are not humor. They are daggers wrapped in laughter. Honesty that humiliates is not truth. It is cruelty wearing a mask. Do not let someone convince you that disrespect is normal. Respect is not a privilege reserved for a few. It is a basic need for all. And when you start valuing respect in your life, something magical happens. You begin to surround yourself with people who uplift you, who speak to you with kindness, who make you feel seen and heard. And as you breathe in this fresh air of respect, you grow stronger, more confident, and more alive. Disrespect suffocates, but respect liberates. Disrespect breaks, but respect heals. Disrespect diminishes, but respect elevates. So, never think of respect as optional. It is as important as the food we eat, the water we drink, and the breath we take. And the moment you realize that, you will stop smiling through disrespect. You will stop treating it as something to ignore. Instead, you will recognize it as poison, and you will choose not to drink it. Because God created you with dignity, and anything less than respect is not worthy of the divine spark that you carry. Boundaries are one of the most misunderstood concepts in life. Many people think of boundaries as walls, barriers that separate us from others, something cold and unfeeling. But boundaries are not walls, they are gates, doors of wisdom that allow love, kindness, and respect to flow in, while keeping toxicity and disrespect out. God has given each of us the intelligence, the intuition, and the inner strength to create these boundaries, not as a punishment to others, but as protection for the sacred space of our hearts. Boundaries are not selfish. They are self-respect in action, and they are essential if we want to live a life of dignity, peace, and purpose. Think of a garden again. A gardener does not let all animals, pests, and weeds enter freely. They create fences, set rules for watering, and carefully choose what grows and what is removed. Without such care, the garden would be overrun, and the flowers would not bloom. Similarly, when you do not set boundaries in life, your energy, your time, and your spirit become overrun with the negativity and disrespect of others. You may try to please everyone, say yes to every demand, and tolerate every insult, but slowly your soul begins to feel tired, depleted, and unloved. Boundaries are your garden fence. They protect the beauty of your life and ensure that what is valuable thrives. Let's take an example from daily life. Imagine a friend constantly criticizes you or tries to make you feel small. If you never speak up or set limits, that behavior continues unchecked. You might feel that keeping quiet is easier than conflict, but in reality, silence in such cases is a slow surrender of your dignity. Setting a boundary, politely, firmly, and calmly, is not anger or arrogance, it is self-respect. You could say, "I value our friendship, but I cannot accept being spoken to that way." This simple statement, rooted in truth and kindness, often transforms relationships. People realize that respect is not optional with you, it is non-negotiable. Boundaries are also about protecting your time and energy. In a world that constantly demands more from us, saying yes to everything is a recipe for exhaustion. God gave us only a limited number of hours in a day, and it is our responsibility to use them wisely. Imagine a mother caring for her children, managing her work, and running a household. If she never says no, never sets limits on what she can and cannot do, she will burn out, and even her love will lose its sweetness. But when she sets boundaries, allocates time for herself, communicates clearly what she can and cannot take on, she not only survives, she thrives. Her energy multiplies, her patience deepens, and her love becomes more powerful. Boundaries also teach people how to treat us. If you tolerate disrespect, people assume it is acceptable. But when you set limits, you are sending a clear, silent message. This is how I allow myself to be treated. This is the space where my dignity resides, and it is sacred. Setting boundaries is not about rejecting others. It is about honoring the divine presence within yourself. God has given you a mind to think, a heart to feel, and a soul to protect. Using boundaries is an act of reverence toward that divine gift. Another example is in professional life. Imagine a colleague who constantly delegates their responsibilities to you, or a boss who expects you to work beyond reasonable hours without acknowledgement. If you do not set boundaries, you will feel overworked, stressed, and undervalued. Setting a boundary could be as simple as respectfully communicating your limits. I am happy to help, but I can only manage this much without compromising quality. By doing so, you are not being rude. You are maintaining the quality of your work, your integrity, and your well-being. Over time, this earns respect, not resentment. People recognize strength in those who know their limits and honor them. Boundaries also protect your emotional well-being. In relationships, it is common for someone to take advantage of your kindness or patience. You might think that accepting everything is love, but God's wisdom reminds us that true love also means saying no when needed. If a partner consistently disrespects your feelings, ignoring that behavior in the name of love is not devotion, it is self-neglect. By setting boundaries, you create a safe emotional space where love can thrive without compromise or harm. Ultimately, boundaries are a spiritual practice. They are a recognition that God has entrusted you with a life that is valuable, sacred, and deserving of protection. By creating boundaries, you align your actions with this divine truth. You no longer allow disrespect, negativity, or exploitation to enter your life unchecked. You honor the sacredness of your heart, and in doing so, you inspire others to treat themselves and you with the same reverence. The beauty of boundaries is that they are flexible, not rigid. They are not about isolating yourself from the world. They are about creating a space where healthy, loving, and respectful interactions can flourish. When you understand this, you realize that boundaries are not limitations, they are liberators. They free you from toxic influences, clarify your purpose, and strengthen your connection with God by honoring the life He has given you. So remember, boundaries are not walls to keep the world out. They are gates that allow only what is right, kind, and respectful to enter. They are acts of self-love, self-respect, and divine wisdom. When you set boundaries, you are not being harsh, you are being holy. You are not being unkind, you are being courageous. And in doing so, you create a life where peace, dignity, and purpose can grow unhindered, like a garden flourishing under the care of a loving gardener. Silence is often considered a virtue. We are told, hold your tongue, keep calm, don't react, and in many situations, that is wise advice. But there is a very fine line between silence as wisdom and silence as surrender. God has given us the gift of speech, the ability to express ourselves, and the power to stand up for our dignity. When silence becomes habitual in the face of disrespect, it is no longer wisdom. It becomes a prison we construct for ourselves. Silence should protect your peace, not compromise your value. Imagine this scenario in daily life. You are sitting in a meeting at work, and someone unfairly criticizes you in front of others. Your first instinct is to remain quiet, to smile, or to nod just to avoid confrontation. At that moment, silence feels safe. You convince yourself that it is the mature response. But as the days go by, similar incidents happen repeatedly. That silent compliance slowly chips away at your confidence and self-worth. You begin to feel invisible, undervalued, and even doubting your own abilities. This is the danger of silence. It is subtle, but it erodes the very essence of who you are. Silence can be a shield, but it should never be a surrender. There is a difference between choosing not to react immediately and choosing to never express your feelings at all. God created our voices not just to speak words, but to communicate truth, to uphold justice, and to honor the divine within ourselves. If someone disrespects us, choosing to speak calmly and assertively is not arrogance. It is a reflection of our inner strength and faith. It is the acknowledgement that we are worthy of dignity, that our heart is sacred, and that we will not let our silence be misinterpreted as weakness. Consider the example of a student in school who is constantly mocked or teased by classmates. The student may smile or stay quiet to avoid embarrassment, thinking that enduring it silently is the only option. But over time, this silence sends a subtle message to others that the behavior is acceptable. The teasing continues, the insults increase, and the student's sense of self-worth diminishes. True courage, guided by wisdom, is when the student finds a way, respectfully and assertively, to set the record straight. This could be as simple as saying, "I do not appreciate that comment," or seeking support from a teacher or mentor. Silence in the wrong situation can be damaging, but using one's voice in truth can be liberating. Silence also has a spiritual dimension. God wants us to cultivate inner peace, yes, but He also expects us to honor the dignity He has placed in us. Remaining quiet while being disrespected is not honoring that divine spark. It is allowing our light to be dimmed by the shadows of others' behavior. Silence must be purposeful. It should be a tool for reflection, for patience, and for strategy, but never for self-erasure. Just as a river finds its path through rocks, navigating challenges without losing its flow, we must find ways to maintain our composure while expressing our truth. Let us also look at relationships. In families or friendships, disrespect often comes in subtle forms. Sarcasm, dismissive comments, or persistent belittling. If we never speak up, over time, resentment builds inside us. That bottled up frustration may eventually explode in anger or hurt, damaging relationships beyond repair. But when we learn to communicate our boundaries calmly and clearly, we create healthier interactions. Silence is powerful, but it must be intentional, not a habit that allows harm to continue. Speaking up with respect and honesty strengthens bonds rather than breaking them. Even in professional life, silence can be dangerous if it allows injustice or mistreatment to go unchecked. Imagine a manager who takes credit for your work or a colleague who undermines your efforts. Choosing to remain silent may seem easier, but in reality, it diminishes your authority and your professional presence. Speaking up with poise and clarity is not aggression. It is affirmation of your competence, your worth, and your commitment to integrity. Over time, people learn to respect those who communicate their limits thoughtfully, rather than those who silently tolerate mistreatment. The key is balance. Silence is a powerful tool when it is paired with discernment, reflection, and eventual action. God has given us the ability to know when to speak, when to hold back, and when to assert ourselves. Silence should never be a habit of fear. It should be a deliberate choice of wisdom. When you honor this balance, you protect your heart, you preserve your peace, and you maintain your dignity. You show the world that your silence is not weakness, but a sign of strength, mindfulness, and divine self-respect. Finally, consider your own self-talk. Often, the most harmful silence is within our own mind. We may let disrespect affect us internally, replaying insults and doubts over and over. This inner silence must be broken with truth. I am worthy. I am respected by God. I will not allow disrespect to define me. When we speak these words to ourselves, we reclaim our power and protect the sacredness of our hearts. Silence can be a gift, but only when it strengthens, protects, and uplifts the soul rather than diminishing it. So, remember this: silence is golden only when it protects your peace and preserves your dignity. It is destructive when it allows disrespect to continue unchecked. God gave you a voice, a mind, and a heart for a reason. Use them to honor yourself, to assert your boundaries, and to maintain the sacredness of your soul. Let your silence be deliberate, your words be truthful, and your heart remain untouchable by the disrespect of others. In this way, silence becomes not a prison, but a sanctuary of wisdom, strength, and divine grace. Seeking the approval of others is one of the most common traps we fall into, yet it is also one of the most dangerous for our inner peace. From the moment we begin interacting with the world, we are conditioned to crave validation, first from parents, then teachers, friends, colleagues, and society at large. We learn to measure our worth by applause, likes, or compliments, forgetting that our true value is not determined by fleeting opinions, but by the divine spark within us. God has placed in each of us a soul that is priceless, a mind capable of wisdom, and a heart capable of love. No human judgment can increase or decrease that inherent worth. Yet we often allow ourselves to be swayed by the voices around us, tolerating disrespect or undermining our dignity just to be accepted or liked. Think of a simple example in daily life. Imagine a teenager in school who wants to fit in. They might laugh at jokes they don't find funny, tolerate teasing they don't deserve, or even betray their own values just to be part of the group. Over time, the constant effort to win approval erodes their self-confidence, and they begin to believe that their worth depends on others' opinions. The irony is painful. The more they chase approval, the more they lose the very thing that makes them unique and valuable, their authentic self. The world may applaud conformity, but God celebrates authenticity. In professional life, the same pattern repeats. Many people stay in jobs they dislike, endure toxic bosses, or accept disrespect from colleagues simply to gain approval or avoid confrontation. They hope that by pleasing everyone, they will be seen as competent, loyal, or valuable. But here is the truth: approval from the world is temporary, often shallow and inconsistent. It can vanish in a moment, leaving you questioning yourself, doubting your choices, and feeling empty. Seeking God's approval, on the other hand, is eternal. When you act with integrity, kindness, and purpose, you align yourself with divine truth. This alignment grants a lasting sense of worth and fulfillment that no human opinion can shake. Consider relationships. Many people tolerate disrespect from friends or partners because they fear losing acceptance or love. They endure hurtful words, inconsiderate actions, or lack of appreciation, believing that staying quiet or agreeing is the price of being valued. But this is a dangerous misconception. Love and respect are inseparable. God teaches us that our soul is sacred, and anyone who diminishes it is not honoring the life that God has entrusted to us. Choosing to uphold your dignity is not arrogance. It is a reflection of your faith, your self-respect, and your understanding of your divine worth. There is also a subtle danger in seeking approval. It shifts our focus from internal growth to external validation. Instead of cultivating qualities like patience, compassion, courage, and integrity, we expend energy trying to impress others. We compare ourselves to everyone around us, measure our success by other standards, and ignore the guidance of our own hearts. In doing so, we lose touch with the purpose God has instilled in our lives. Our journey becomes dictated by applause rather than authenticity, by fear rather than faith, and by others' judgments rather than our own divine potential. Even in small daily interactions, the impact is profound. Imagine someone constantly posting on social media, seeking likes, comments, or compliments. Every negative remark feels like a wound. Every ignored post feels like failure. They live in a cycle of temporary highs and crushing lows, completely dependent on others' approval for their self-esteem. But what if they shifted their focus inward? What if they measured success by how closely their actions align with truth, kindness, and their values? Suddenly, the highs and lows of external validation lose their power, and peace replaces anxiety. Approval is no longer a necessity, it becomes a bonus. The lesson is clear. When we live for God's approval rather than the fleeting opinions of people, we free ourselves. We are no longer slaves to social pressures, manipulative relationships, or superficial judgments. We gain the courage to say no to disrespect, to set boundaries, to pursue our dreams, and to embrace who we are fully. Seeking God's approval transforms every decision into an act of integrity, every action into a reflection of our inner strength, and every relationship into a space of mutual respect and authenticity. There is also an emotional freedom that comes with this shift. When we stop worrying about what others think, we stop being anxious, defensive, and fearful. Our energy is no longer drained by trying to please everyone. Instead, it flows into meaningful work, authentic relationships, and spiritual growth. God never asks us to diminish ourselves for the comfort of others. He asks us to honor the divine within us, to live with courage, and to radiate our light without apology. Even in challenging situations, the principle holds. If someone criticizes you unfairly, seeks to manipulate you, or undermines your efforts, remember their opinion does not define your worth. God has placed a spark of divinity within you that no human voice can extinguish. By focusing on that truth, you develop resilience, self-respect, and clarity. You stop tolerating disrespect, stop shrinking yourself, and start living in alignment with your divine purpose. Ultimately, seeking God's approval over people's opinions is not about arrogance, isolation, or superiority. It is about truth, integrity, and self-respect. It is about living a life where your actions, words, and choices honor the sacredness of your soul. Approval from others may come and go, but the peace, confidence, and dignity that come from aligning with God are eternal. When you internalize this, you no longer smile through disrespect, tolerate humiliation, or bend your spirit for others' comfort. Instead, you live courageously, authentically, and with unwavering faith in your divine worth.